police found a wastebasket made of human skin, a belt of nipples, and a heart in a bag by the stove. Edward Theodore Gein was born August 27, 1906, in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, the younger of two sons born to George and Augusta Gein. Augusta was fervently religious, and she preached constantly to her boys about the wickedness of the world and the sinfulness of women. Every afternoon she read to Ed and his older brother Henry from the Bible, favoring passages about death, murder, and divine punishment. The family eventually settled on a 155-acre farm outside Plainfield, and Augusta used the farm's isolation to keep outsiders away from her sons. Ed's father, a carpenter and tanner who also worked as a firefighter, was a violent alcoholic who beat both boys. Ed left the property only for school. Classmates remembered him as shy, with odd mannerisms like laughing at seemingly private jokes, and Augusta punished him whenever he tried to make friends. He idolized her all the same, and by the time he reached adulthood, that devotion had become the center of his life. His father died of heart failure in 1940, leaving Ed, Henry, and Augusta alone on the farm, doing handyman work around town to get by. On November 16, 1957, Bernice Worden, a 58-year-old hardware store owner, vanished from her Plainfield shop. Her son, Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden, found the register open and blood on the floor that evening. He told investigators Gein had been in the store the night before and was expected back for a gallon of antifreeze, and the antifreeze sales slip was the last one his mother had written. Gein was arrested that night, and deputies searched his farm. In a shed, they found Worden's decapitated body, strung up by the legs, torso opened like a deer. Inside the house, the list grew stranger with every room: chairs upholstered in human skin, bowls carved from skulls, a corset cut from a woman's torso, masks made from the faces of the dead. Mary Hogan's skull turned up in a box, her face in a paper bag. Worden's head was found in a burlap sack, her heart in a bag by the stove. Gein told investigators he'd made as many as 40 nighttime visits to local cemeteries between 1947 and 1952, sometimes in what he called a daze, digging up recently buried middle-aged women who resembled his mother. He said he'd robbed 9 graves. When investigators exhumed 3 of the graves he named, they found things largely as he described: one casket empty, another empty save for a few bones and his own crowbar. His confession, disturbing as it was, checked out. Gein also confessed to shooting Mary Hogan, a 51-year-old tavern owner missing since 1954, though he claimed he had no memory of the details. Investigators also looked harder at a death inside his own family. In 1944, Ed's brother Henry had been burning vegetation on the farm when the fire got out of control. By the end of the day, Henry was dead, found lying face down, apparently of heart failure, with no burns or injuries. At the time, authorities accepted it as an accident, no autopsy was performed, and no formal investigation followed. It was only later, biographer Harold Schechter reported, that bruises on Henry's head came to light. One researcher who studied the case, George Orant, wrote that it seemed possible and likely that Henry's death carried what he called a Cain and Abel element. That remains his theory, not a settled fact. The coroner's ruling of accidental death was never overturned, and no charge was ever brought. Gein was ruled unfit for trial in 1957 and confined to a mental hospital. By 1968, doctors judged him competent, and a week-long trial found him guilty of Bernice Worden's murder before a second hearing ruled him not guilty by reason of insanity. He was committed for life. His house burned down before it could be auctioned or turned into a tourist stop. Arson was suspected but never proven, and when Gein heard, he reportedly just said, "Just as well." He died at Mendota Mental Health Institute on July 26, 1984, of respiratory failure linked to lung cancer. He's buried in Plainfield Cemetery, between his parents and his brother, though souvenir hunters chipped away at his gravestone for years until the stone itself was stolen in 2000, leaving the grave, to this day, unmarked.